Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Some more transfer news for you today, and not necessarily the best transfer news in the world, but there is an awful lot to digest and an awful lot to talk about with regards to the reports that have come out this evening on Liverpool's transfer target. So sit tight, because this could potentially be a little bit of a long video because, as I said, there is a lot to get through. So starting off with the big transfer news that broke this evening, the Daily Mail are reporting that Liverpool have apparently ended their interest in RB Leipzig midfielder Naby Keita. Apparently Jurgen Klopp met with the club's CEO Michael Edwards after the club's tour of Hong Kong, and the two discussed the pros and cons of pursuing Naby Keita and decided that it was best, for now at least, to just park that deal and potentially come back to it next summer, but for now at least plan for the rest of the season without Naby Keita and make no further bids on the player. There were reports not so long ago as even yesterday morning from the Daily Mirror suggesting that Liverpool were prepared to go in with another big bid. Apparently they were interested in bidding £70 million for Naby Keita, which would have been meeting RB Leipzig's apparent original valuation of him. But apparently now the club have decided that this is not the route they're willing to go down. Now, the idea of us coming back to him next summer, when he apparently has this £48 million release clause, is a little bit of a concern for me, because, I mean, you only have to look as far back as the Mahmoud Dahoud attempted signing that Liverpool had, where they decided that they were going to try and pursue him the summer afterwards when he apparently had a release clause in action, and that hasn't really worked out too well for us, given that he is now apparently signing for Borussia Dortmund. I think that signing's over the line, I'm not sure, but it is definitely in some regards on its way, and Liverpool have completely failed in their pursuit of that player. So it's not necessarily the best idea in the world, and it does hinge on a lot of factors that could or could not go our way. I mean, for starters, Liverpool need to prove that they are still a club on the rise, because I think that's one of the main reasons that Naby Keita wanted to join us. I think he saw us as having greater prospects than RB Leipzig in terms of the club's near future. And for Liverpool to carry on doing that, they need to not just be as good as last season, they need to actually improve on it. They need to get a better finish in the league. They need to perform well in the Champions League. I mean, at least they need to reach the knockout stages, and they need to do well in the domestic cup competitions as well. It also relies on the fact that Naby Keita still wants to leave RB Leipzig. I mean, it's possible that they could have another good season and he could actually want to stay there. It's also possible that other clubs could come in for Naby Keita next summer transfer window. You know, if Bayern Munich or Real Madrid or someone like that comes calling, it's highly likely that Liverpool won't be able to compete for them if they want to sign Naby Keita as well. There's also the fact that this £48 million release clause that apparently exists might not actually exist at all. I think RB Leipzig have actually tried to deny it at various points, and there's also a suggestion that it could be only a domestic release clause, so only German clubs like Bayern Munich could actually trigger it, and Liverpool would not be able to play any role in trying to trigger that £48 million release clause. So Liverpool would be walking a massive tightrope, effectively, if they tried to wait until next summer to sign Naby Keita. To be honest, the fact that we're not willing to immediately put in another bid for Naby Keita shouldn't really come as much of a surprise, because apparently the dialogue that is going on at the moment is not between Liverpool and Leipzig, not between Liverpool and Keita, but actually between Naby Keita's representatives and RB Leipzig, because I think Keita and his agency, who are called Arena 11, if anyone's ever heard of them, have basically come to the conclusion that if Naby Keita wants to leave Liverpool, they need to first of all convince RB Leipzig to sell, because Leipzig have been very public and very firm on their stance this summer that they don't want to sell the player and they have no interest in cashing in. So if Naby Keita is going to leave, then there is going to need to be some convincing on RB Leipzig's part, and apparently Keita has told his agents and his agency that he wants to leave, he wants this move to Liverpool, and it's up to them now to convince Leipzig to sell. So it does really make sense when you think about it that Liverpool aren't planning any bids anytime soon, because if RB Leipzig haven't yet been convinced to sell Naby Keita, then it makes no sense to bid £70 million anyway. It makes no sense to bid £80 million or whatever amount of money we choose to throw at them, because RB Leipzig simply don't want to sell at the moment. So what we kind of need to hope for is that these discussions go well and Keita's agents are actually capable of convincing RB Leipzig that it would actually be a good move for them to sell. And if you ask me, it kind of would, because there is this whole thing about the release clause. It is possible that they could lose him for less money next summer, and £70 million, €80 million is an awful lot of money, and RB Leipzig have a pretty good record when it comes to signing players on the cheap, developing them and turning them into top class players, Naby Keita being a fantastic example of this fact. So it wouldn't necessarily be the worst deal for them in the world to actually sell Naby Keita for such a huge amount. So hopefully Keita's agency can convince RB Leipzig of that, and then if that happens, then we might see Liverpool come in for another bid. It's also possible that this whole story breaking about Liverpool ending their interest could be a little bit of game playing on our part. It's a little bit of a shot in the dark. It might not necessarily be true, but we've talked an awful lot this summer about RB Leipzig and the games they've played with the media, the way they've manipulated the stories about this transfer saga to try and suit their ends and their negotiations. So it's possible that Liverpool could be saying they're ending their interest, maybe to motivate Keita's agency and get them to try and get them to just hurry up, give them the kick up the backside they need to get these negotiations over the line and convince RB Leipzig to sell. It could also be to wake RB Leipzig up and make them realise that maybe they can't manipulate Liverpool and their negotiators as much as they think they can, and make them realise that perhaps they should just take the money and run if another bid comes through. So I think it's one that we will find out a lot more about what's going on with this saga in the coming days, because if Liverpool now start targeting other midfielders, then it will definitely be clear that the interest in Naby Keita has been parked for this summer at least. There's talk that we could even go in for a 12-month loan deal for Renato Sanchez, which he is apparently available for. Bayern Munich have said that they're potentially interested in loaning him out. There's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, who has been a long rumoured transfer target for most of this summer. If Liverpool don't sign Naby Keita, then he could prove a decent backup, especially given that we've targeted him already, so he wouldn't necessarily just be a second choice. The Telegraph are reporting that Chelsea are interested in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Apparently they're interested in making a £30 million bid for him. So if Liverpool do want to sign Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain as a Naby Keita backup, then they may need to get their skates on in that regard. So it could be that interest in Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain actually ramps up in the next few days or the next few weeks. But for now, at least, it very much depends on those negotiations between Keita and between Keita's agency and RB Leipzig. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they will go well, and in a few days we should know whether or not Liverpool will actually put in that third bid. Elsewhere, news on Van Dijk, Liverpool's other top summer transfer target. The Telegraph are reporting that Southampton now apparently fully expect to hold on to Virgil van Dijk as part of an overall effort to stop selling their best players every single summer transfer window. Apparently, the owners have backed the manager and decided that this is going to be their first transfer window when they don't sell any of their top players, and obviously that includes Virgil van Dijk. Apparently their plan is actually to reintegrate him into the squad at some point during the next week. We obviously know, and I've mentioned on the channel in the past, that a big rift grew as Van Dijk told Southampton and Maurizio Pellegrino that he didn't want to play for them anymore. He wanted to join Liverpool, so he was left to train on his own. He didn't go on the club's training camp of France. He was left in their training camp in the New Forest, and it did seem that this almost unhealable rift had actually grown between Van Dijk and Southampton. Now, I did say in my video on that whole situation that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see Van Dijk doing the Melwood lean next morning, because it is a situation that a player could potentially come back from. I'm not saying that he will. I think it would be quite impressive now if Van Dijk does actually heal all these wounds and carry on playing for Southampton as if nothing ever happened. But it makes sense really for Southampton to at least try and assert the fact that they want to hold on to Van Dijk and expect to keep him and expect him to carry on playing his football at the club. Because if it did become clear that he wanted to leave and that there was no chance of him playing, then it doesn't necessarily put them in the best position negotiating wise if they want to bring in a big fee for Virgil van Dijk, and that is apparently what they want to be doing. So it's not necessarily the end of this transfer saga either, and personally I think Liverpool will hopefully be particularly persistent with regards to this saga, simply because Van Dijk is that one player this summer transfer window that we absolutely desperately need. I mean, I've said in past videos that between Van Dijk and Keita, I'd rather get Van Dijk simply because we can go on without Naby Keita. He'd be a fantastic addition to the squad, and he'd certainly improve our chances of winning the Premier League and at least challenging for the title and also progressing in the Champions League. But we can go on without him. We can potentially go on without him forever, really. It's not necessarily hugely important that Keita signs, but Van Dijk was the player that was identified at the start of this window as the one that Liverpool needed, and if we don't get him, then it will reflect as a huge failure on the part, not necessarily of FSG, because I think they get far too much flack with transfers, and it's not necessarily all their own work when it comes to bringing in players, but it will reflect very badly on Liverpool's transfer team as a whole, as they will have basically failed on the only player that they actually 100% needed to get in this summer transfer window. So hopefully Liverpool can carry on pushing for this deal and hopefully get it on over the line fairly soon. In other news, Hanover are reportedly interested in taking Lazar Markovic on loan for the season at least, which would be very good because personally, and I think most Liverpool fans, don't actually see him having much of a future at the club. I mean, he's been out on loan for the past 2 seasons. He's been at us for 3 years already, and he showed no signs of actually becoming a proper first-team player at Liverpool. So, I mean, surely after this loan deal, his contract would be up. That would represent 4 seasons at Liverpool, and I can't really see him having a contract much longer than that. It's possible he signed a 5-year contract. I mean, goodness knows why. But hopefully this is a sign that we may finally be getting rid of Lazar Markovic, because no disrespect to him, he's not necessarily the worst footballer in the world, but he's just not good enough for Liverpool, and it doesn't seem like Klopp has much interest in keeping him at the club. So it is kind of important we get rid of him soon, because even though we probably won't get a massive fee for him, he's probably eating a fair bit out of our wage budget, because when Liverpool brought him in, we were actually expecting him to be a regular first-team player. We brought him in for a fairly sizable fee. I think it was £20 million way back in 2014, so he was probably on a fairly decent wage to come with that. So if Liverpool want to be bringing in big players and specifically attracting them with large wage packets, then they need to get players off Markovic off the books to make that space to bring in top quality players. So hopefully Hanover, if they do sign him, will be paying some of his wages. If not, hopefully we can offload him on a permanent deal, or hopefully his contract will simply expire. Long story short, Liverpool need to get rid of Lazar Markovic, and it kind of looks like they might actually manage it by the end of this window. Elsewhere, Conor Randall is off on a move to Hearts, which again is a good move for the player, simply because I can't really see him getting that much game time at Liverpool next season. He didn't do particularly well last season in terms of first team football, and with Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in at right back as competition for Nathaniel Klein, there isn't really room for Conor Randall to actually play any games there. John Flanagan is also knocking around as well as a right back contestant. So again, Randall didn't really have much prospects in terms of playing for the team next season. Interesting that Hearts said that he was a midfielder, though, if anyone spotted that rather unfortunate gaffe on Twitter. I mean, if they want to play him in midfield, then fine, good luck to them. I mean, I'd certainly watch a lot more of Scottish football if it meant getting to see Conor Randall in midfield, and I'm sure a lot of other people would. So maybe that's a PR stunt on their part. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But long story short, Conor Randall is gone. It's only on a 12-month loan deal, so he's not gone completely just yet. I mean, it's possible that he could get a lot of game time at Hearts. He could show himself to be a much better footballer than we all think he is, and maybe he does have a future at Liverpool after all. So it might be interesting to see what goes on with Conor Randall at Hearts. And finally, Philippe Coutinho. A lot of news has been going on about him in the past few days. Not necessarily the best news if you're a Liverpool fan, but he reportedly has no idea what is going on with regards to stories in the Catalan press linking him with a move to Barcelona. This doesn't really surprise me much, because I know a lot of cynical Liverpool fans out there seem to think that it's just an inevitability that Coutinho will leave the club as soon as possible. But I don't necessarily think he's going to leave, simply because he's said a lot in the past how much he likes being at Liverpool, how much he values the club and what they've done for his career and how much they've helped his development. He's spoken about how much he likes playing under Klopp and how he does seem to see a big future for himself at Liverpool, and he could obviously become a very important player for the club if he stays on, if he continues developing, and if we challenge on all fronts next season and cement our place in the Champions League. So it would surprise me if he goes, to be honest. I really can't see it happening, especially seeing as Barcelona are bidding measly amounts such as £72 million, which are nowhere near what Coutinho is actually worth. So doesn't really surprise me. I personally think it's almost certain that he will stay at the club this summer. So that's all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here and would like to see some more transfer news like today's, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel in the past few weeks as well. Apart from that, don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter for some more transfer updates, and I'll see you in a bit. Bye for now.